The association between the great Irish writer Samuel Beckett and the game of cricket deserves to be more widely known. He was a fine player when a student at Trinity College, Dublin, and even merits a mention in the famous Wisden's, the cricketer's Bible, the only Nobel Prize winner to be so lauded. On one occasion in the mid-1960s, Beckett travelled from Paris to London to watch the test match between England and Australia. It was a beautiful sunny summer afternoon. Blue skies, Lord's cricket ground, green and glorious. One of his friends remarked, "What a wonderful day! This is the sort of day that would make you glad to be alive." To which Beckett responded dryly, "I wouldn't go as far as that." The story nicely encompasses two aspects of Samuel Beckett: his famously bleak view of life and his mordant sense of humour. If, as Horace Walpole remarked, the world is a comedy to those who think and a tragedy to those who feel, it is fitting that Beckett's Waiting for Godot is subtitled A Tragi-Comedy. In his theatrical images and prose writings, Beckett achieved a spare beauty, an articulation of human suffering shot through with dark comedy and humour. It seems almost too coincidental that this most famous dramatist of desolation, whose work teems with biblical allusion, would be born on the day of the crucifixion. Yet Samuel Barclay Beckett was born on Good Friday, 13th of April 1906, in the affluent village of Foxrock, 8 miles south of Dublin. Beckett was educated at Portora Royal School, Enniskillen, now in Northern Ireland, the alma mater of another great Irish playwright, Oscar Wilde, where he excelled academically and at sports. He graduated from Trinity College, Dublin in 1927, first in his class, and was awarded the college's gold medal. He seemed destined for a glittering academic career, and in October 1928 he headed to Paris for a 2-year exchange fellowship at the distinguished École Normale Supérieure. His immersion in the Parisian literary scene had a profound impact on the young Irishman. He became attached to the circle of another great Irish writer, James Joyce, the revered author of Ulysses, published in 1922, and in 1929 published his first critical essay on Joyce's work in progress, which would become Finnegan's Wake. On his return to Dublin, Beckett was unhappy lecturing at Trinity College and resigned after little more than a year. He often said that he gave up his job because he could not bear teaching to others what he did not know himself. At this point, Samuel Beckett determined to be a writer and a man of letters. In 1931, he published a short critical book, Proust, on the great French writer, which brilliantly identified that Proust was a philosopher, and his long novel was in essence a search for the meaning of life, which rests, Proust thought, and Beckett agreed, on the making and appreciation of art. Despite the brilliance of this essay, Beckett would have many setbacks and rejections in his attempts to establish himself in the literary world, an echo of the themes of failure that would so dominate his work. He failed to get his first serious attempt at a novel, Dream of Fair to Middling Women, published, though much of it was reworked into a short story collection, More Pricks Than Kicks, which came out in 1934. The next year he published a slim volume of poetry, Echoes, Bones, and Other Precipitates, marked, like much work of this period, with dense erudition and pessimism. Beckett's London novel, Murphy, was completed in 1936. This comic novel of ideas is probably his most accessible, least experimental full-length work, though this didn't stop it going through 42 rejections, before finally being published by Routledge in 1938. Beckett had long suffered from panic attacks, anxiety and depression, often with terrible physical manifestations. He went to London in the early 1930s to undertake psychoanalysis with the famous British analyst Wilfrid Bion. The interest he developed in psychology and psychiatry showed constantly in the asylum scenes in Murphy and in his next novel, What?, written while hiding out in rural France during the Second World War. His personal experience of psychotherapy emerges too in his later work, much of which is in the form of a monologue, where a speaker gabbles in a kind of delirium to a faceless listener, much as one might at moments in analysis. Though Beckett's works are highly nonspecific and tend not to refer explicitly to the Second World War or other historical events, there is little doubt that the traumas of history deeply scoured his imagination. Appalled by the treatment of his Jewish friends under Nazi occupation, Beckett became actively involved in the resistance in Paris, principally as an information handler. Beckett's experience of the war and the devastation he witnessed in France afterwards seems to have contributed to a radical change of direction. During a return visit to Dublin in 1946, Beckett had a vision or revelation of literary purpose, which marks the divide between his 1930s work, third person, erudite, omniscient, and the dwindled, bewildered first-person storytelling of his mature prose. Unlike some of his early writing, which shows the influence of Joyce in its wordplay and heavy allusion to other literary works, the post-war work carries its learning more lightly, making ignorance, impotence, and failure its key preoccupations. This change in direction was accompanied by the decision to write in French. There followed, between 1946 and 1950, a frenzy of writing, which included much of the work for which Samuel Beckett is now famous, namely Waiting for Godot and his great trilogy of novels, Malloy, Malone Dies, and The Unnameable. En attendant Godot was written between October 1948 and January 1949 as a diversion from the more taxing, as Beckett saw it, business of prose composition. It was eventually staged in a small avant-garde Parisian theatre in January of 1953. The play's immense success generated international controversy and wide interest. Set on a bare stage, apart from a lone tree and one rock, with two characters exchanging inconsequential dialogue while waiting at the side of a road for a character who never comes, Beckett's play provoked confusion and hostility. When an English version transferred to London in 1955, it was greeted with whistles and jeers of derision. However, Waiting for Godot became a succès de scandale and is arguably the most influential play of the whole of the 20th century. Godot presents a dark vision of human life, mixed with plenty of vaudeville antics and slapstick comedy. The play's action or inaction seems at points suggestive of universal or an existential condition. But at this place and at this moment in time, all mankind is us, whether we like it or not, declares one character. Did the non-arrival of Godot, critics pondered, suggest the absence of God in the modern world? Or did the play rather dramatize the yearning and sense of incompleteness in which we live most of our lives? Most people, after all, exist in a state of anticipation or future-orientedness. Once I get the right job or the right house, or my beloved said yes, or I retire, then I will be happy. But once desire or ambition is realized, we start to want something else. The ultimate satisfaction, the Godot who will give us final fulfillment, never arrives. Yet for all these philosophical interpretations, nothing is certain in Beckett's work. He once remarked that the key word in my plays is perhaps. It may be that Beckett's greatest achievement is his brave depictions not of a pessimistic outlook, but of a bewildered one. If we leave his plays perplexed, then this is an appropriate response. We too are waiting for something that never arrives, the reassurance of a clarity, of meaning, of certainty, even the certainty of darkness. Beckett was, almost instinctively, a master of the stage. His next great play, Endgame, in 1957, gives us the enduring image of human beings in dustbins. Outside the room in which the action takes place, all seems dead, grey, and corpsed in some sort of post-apocalyptic devastation that speaks urgently to our own era of environmental crisis. Though a black humour endures, even human values and meanings seem to be draining away. One character remarks, as if in answer to those who would turn Beckett's work into mere philosophy, "Mean something, you and I mean something." That's a good one. As his career progressed, Beckett's plays and prose generally became ever more condensed and minimal. The plays would often focus on a single intense image, a woman buried up to her waist in the sand, Happy Days, a man and two women fixed in some sort of purgatorial urns, babbling out the story of their adulterous triangle, Play, a single illuminated mouth telling stories in the third person, terrified of using the word I, not I. Beckett gives us works of art that offer an experience, not just an idea or a takeaway message. He takes us into the perplexity of the modern condition in which the traditional consolations, belief in a providential plan or hopes for civilizational progress, have been shattered by the barbarism of war and Holocaust. Yet if Beckett's work presents us with human extremity, there are moments of fellow feeling, of compassion, and of exquisite black humour. Moreover, his writing is marked with the most scrupulous exactitude and precision. There is a shape to his chaos, one which emerges with a sort of wintry serenity, a calm balletic structure to his plays. It is this formal and artistic achievement that allows us to cherish in Becket's work a fragile, necessary grace. We love bringing you these films. If you want to help us to keep bringing you thoughtful content, please consider supporting us by visiting our shop at the link on your screen now.